Well, it's 10 a.m. Good morning, everybody. It's a delight to have you on this bright and beautiful day, Thursday, the 16th of March. Welcome to the final program in our series, Connoisseurship, or How to Be a Connoisseur. It's been featuring discussions with industry luminaries in subjects such as jewelry and timepieces, style and design, the home, art, food and wine, and of course, today's program, luxury travel. A couple of quick housekeeping items, as we always do. Please, the only people who should be on the screen right now are Sean and myself. We want to make sure that, just admit people here. We want to make sure that you don't sneak in and you're on screen. Occasionally, Zoom will allow people to do that. So the only two faces we see are myself and Sean. There is a chat button at the bottom. If you've got a question that you would like to pose throughout the conversation today, just hit that chat button and type it in there. I'll pick it up as we're going through the conversation, and I'll try to incorporate it and get a response from Sean as we're chatting. And again, the question I always get is, are you recording? Yes, we are recording today's session. We will post the link to YouTube this afternoon, and we'll send you out a note through Eventbrite that advises you that the recording is now available. So today's program, for those of you who have been following the series, we try to deconstruct the concept of connoisseurship and how it equips the luxury marketer with a fundamental understanding of the subject itself, and more appropriately, how to convey the meaning and importance to your clients and to your customers. And today we're fortunate to have as our guide for the subject of luxury travel, Captain Sean Meagher. Sean has commanded some of the world's finest yachts and has been awarded numerous honors for exploration, design, and outstanding customer service. His voyages through the Northwest Passage in the Arctic have been the subject of articles, books, and short films. Sean is an avid conservationist, and he's a member of the New York Explorers Club, the Yacht Club de Monaco, and the St. Francis Yacht Club. And the reason we reached out to Sean today was that he's associated with luxury yachting, particularly with a remarkable company out of Florida called Worth Avenue Yachts that has locations in Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach, Monaco, Seattle, San Diego, etc. We've had the feeling that the customer and a clientele that gravitates towards luxury yachting is really somebody who we think probably has a greater grasp of connoisseurship. So hence our outreach today to Sean. Captain Meagher, welcome.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. How are you?
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. You're where? You're up in Newport or Connecticut today?
No, I'm on Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and I'm in my living room right now.
Okay. I see you've got a fire going there, which is always a good thing to have.
I do. It's a little nippy out today, but not too bad.
Well, sure. Let's start as we always do at 30,000 feet, and then we'll come down into the granular stuff as we progress. I always open with the question of how do you define connoisseurship? You yourself, what does it mean to you to be a connoisseur?
Well, you sent me a couple of questions, and I gave it some thought, and I wrote a bunch of different things of what it means to be a connoisseurship, but be a connoisseur. But what I distilled it down to is anyone who appreciates excellence is a connoisseur. Because it's such a broad subject. You can be a connoisseur in anything. I mean, the guy. I mean, from NASCAR to Nobu. I mean, the Duck Dynasty guys are connoisseurs when it comes to duck calls. So I think anyone who appreciates excellence is a connoisseur.
You yourself, how many years have you been in the yachting industry?
I grew up in it. Really, it was. I've been in the marine industry. I grew up in. It was. I started as a deckhand when I was 14 on a sightseeing boat and giving tours on board the boats, and then I got a captain's license, and then I got my first job on a yacht when I was about 20. Well, in my early 20s, and then progressed from there. So my whole life, really, I've been commanding vessels since for about 35 years, which, I started when I was like 10. So
Let me put you on the spot. Do you consider yourself a connoisseur?
absolutely.
Why?
Absolutely. I think
Why?
why is because, like, back to the definition I just said, I think I appreciate excellence, and just in all forms. And in yachting, it's really an industry that you get to experience many different things on board the boat. I'm not just driving the boat. I'm running a 5-star hotel and a Michelin star restaurant. So kind of knowing the difference of what makes a 5-star restaurant, what makes a Michelin star, excuse me, a 5-star hotel, which makes a Michelin star restaurant, and also running a first class operation from a safety standpoint is gives me an appreciation of things in a lot of different realms.
I opened up with a comment, Sean, that I felt that luxury, if we were going to pick a category of luxury travel, that yachting would probably bring us closer to the connoisseur than most of the other categories. Am I being condescending, or am I being accurate?
No, I think you're absolutely spot on. Again, it's you get a person that comes on board, and it's my job to exceed their expectations, and that's just not just providing like a clean boat and in a fun locale. It's squeezing the best out of all of that. And oftentimes you get experienced travelers that have, they've taken the Abercrombie and Kent tours. They've done, they've experienced service and style and all those things at such high levels. As when they come to you, you really have to bring it all together just to impress them, to give them that wow factor, because they've been wowed their entire life. And to have someone that comes on board that has had all these wonderful experiences, and then they come to you and say, this was something special. That's really what I live for.
Sean, quick digression. You're associated with luxury yachts. Let's take my Sienna, for example. How many meters? How many feet?
She's about 180 feet.
So what would it cost me to charter that yacht, say for a 3-day charter or a 5-day charter?
We're well, actually, I'll just break it down for the week. So it's approximately between $280,000 to $300,000 per week, and then you can prorate it from there. Oftentimes we won't prorate it because we do make exceptions, but it's the same amount of effort goes into a 3-day charter as it does into a week charter. Sometimes a bit more.
So at that, what do I get for that price point?
Well, just for that, you get to go sit on the boat. That doesn't include fuel, food, or anything else. That is just merely the price for the boat and for the crew.
So given that expense level, what type of clientele is coming on board the yacht?
Well, you get all high net worth clienteles. High net worth individuals will come on board there. I don't want to put I'd say people with a net worth from probably 80 to a couple hundred million. When you get up into people that are above that, like that $500 million to into the billions, we do get those clientele. We do get those clients on those boats, but they can actually afford something on the next level, like on Bravo Eugenia, which is another boat that I ran. That boat charters at $2.6 million per week.
That's a staggering amount of money.
Yeah.
So what experience at that price point? What experience are they seeking? What's the psychology of the experience that they're seeking?
At that point, you've got people with different needs. I actually prefer the boats that are between 150 to about 240 feet. To me, is the sweet spot on a boat. And like I delivered a boat called Lunacy and we would, that was a Fedship, beautiful boat. I brought it up to Greenland, and that boat charters for about 900,000 per week. And what was nice about that boat is that it was still small. I know 240 doesn't sound small, but it was small enough to still give kind of an intimate experience. It was small enough to get into some interesting places, but large enough that you could offer like large yacht experiences. Like we had a spa on board. We had room for a personal trainer. We had a great gym. We had a lot of toys that we took with us. And I think that's the difference, is the bigger the boats that you get, offer more in-house experiences. For instance, that we had on Bravo Eugenia, we had not one chef, we had three, and they were all phenomenal. And just the crew food on board that boat, I never got a meal that I wouldn't have gladly paid for in a restaurant. That was some of the most amazing food that I've ever experienced, just as a crew member, but let alone as a guest. I mean, they just put it way over the top. So I guess when you get into the psychology of who's renting what, it depends on what type of experience that they want and what type of experience do they want for their guests. Now, if you truly want like a fun, intimate experience with your family, you rent a smaller boat, because you can get into, I'll give you a perfect example. I was running a boat called Ohana, and I had some people at a family on board. They were lovely. It was a husband and wife and two kids, and they wanted a fun family adventure. And we were in St. Kitts years ago, and I was in this little cove. I mean, the boat only drew 8.5 feet of water. That means there's 8.5 feet underneath the boat. And so I got into this really tight cove, and there was monkeys on the beach, and we could swim to the beach and everything. Now, a mile away was Paul Allen's boat, Octopus, 440 feet long, two helicopters.
I've seen that. I've seen that one.
Basketball courts. I don't even know how much that boat chartered for. But my point was, they were a mile, the closest they could get was a mile away. Now, granted, if you wanted a party for 100 on board and landing people coming and going with helicopters, if that's the type of experience that you wanted, if you wanted a Bond villain experience, then that's what you would rent. But if you really want something special, that's a lot more intimate, the smaller boats, which are less money, I think can sometimes offer some of the best experiences.
Sure. Let me just dispose of something quickly. You were co-opted to doing a sort of a quick fill-in for, there's a program on Bravo called Below Deck, which sort of
yes,
peripherally deals with yachting. And on the occasions that I've gone in there to look at that, it struck me that you had a lot of people who were twerking and jiggling booties, and it was a sort of a strange experience. That is not the average customer, correct?
No, those boats, those charters are, as a matter of fact, I can get through about 5. The only full episodes I've ever watched were the ones that I was in, and because that show in some regards makes me a little mental. And the charters are relatively short. They're given at a discount, and it's reality television. I mean, it's so they come, people come on board and they're playing for the cameras. I got very lucky. I actually had a group. It was 8 women. They all went to the same school together, and they were all lovely. And they were celebrating I think they were celebrating all their 40 or 45th birthdays. I forget, but they decided to come on the show because it was something that they could afford, and it would really be fun. And they were lovely guests. They were absolutely lovely, and they weren't. Didn't make for a very exciting episode in a lot of respects, but I was able to give them a good experience.
But that's not the average profile of the customer that you're seeing on board a luxury yacht.
Actually, they were.
They were. But the program in general.
No, well, it depends. I've had the horror stories as well too. Surprisingly enough, like Below Deck, I've seen crazier. I've seen absolutely crazier than what they show on Below Deck, and that goes with crew and with guests. It's often how it's edited. There's a lot of shenanigans that happen on board the boat that I would never allow have happen on any of my boats. But yeah, but you'd really be surprised, and that begs the question that money oftentimes doesn't necessarily mean good taste or decorum.
That we know. Let's go back to this connoisseurship issue and just wrap this up if we can, Sean.
Sure.
So the notion of connoisseurship, can it be taught? Is it acquired? Is it tied to a price point? Is it tied to a social background? All of the above?
Absolutely. I'll give you a perfect example. It was the owner of my Sienna, or the old owner of my Sienna, Robert Pereira, and he I'll never forget this. I mean, he came up, he Vietnam vet, started a roofing company and owns one of the largest construction companies in Boston right now. I mean, he is the epitome of a self-made man. Not traditionally your picture of quote unquote the connoisseur. He was really kind of a rough and tumble guy at his core, but he really had an appreciation. I mean, he had a very distinctive taste with some things, but he really had an appreciation of things that were quality. And I'll give you a perfect example of how things can be learned. And this is a story that he told me, when he first started making money, he would just go in and buy the most expensive bottle of wine that he possibly could. And he'd pop the cork and he'd just drink it. He'd be like, well, this doesn't taste very good, but he knew nothing about decanting, why certain wines, but he really took the time to educate himself on, okay, why is this bottle of wine? What's special about this bottle of wine and how can I learn about it? And now, I don't know, I think how long he's been collecting wine. I think it's probably 30 some odd years, and he has an amazing cellar. But he also has developed an amazing palate. And I'll never forget the time I was in Florence with him. It was for his birthday. And we were at a hotel, and he ordered a bottle of Cristal champagne. And granted, he'd been drinking all day, like here in wine and everything, but he ordered a bottle of champagne. And he takes a sip and he goes, didn't you order the I think it was like, didn't you order the domestic one? And I said, yeah. He says, well, this is vintage. And I said, really? He says, yeah. This is the 99. And sure enough, he was right. And that was learned. I mean, he didn't come out of the gate knowing that. That was a lot of champagne he had to drink to get to that point. But he did learn it to become a connoisseur when it came to wine. So yeah, I definitely think it can be learned. And I think that that's with like, it's like a friend of mine, the one who introduces to is she makes custom linens and such and everything. And, and I've got a couple of, I didn't know anything about sheets. And she educated me. And now I know the difference. I know the difference between why is this a good cashmere? Why is this not a good cashmere? What's the difference? Why is this more expensive than the other? And so, yes, absolutely. I do think
it's acquirable.
Can be learned. Absolutely.
Sean, you mentioned Duck Dynasty at the front end. You said even you could be a connoisseur of duck, connoisseur of ducks. I've never seen the program. But to that point, if I'm on a Carnival cruise ship or if I'm at Sandals Resort, I'm trying to think of a mass travel environment. Is there any sense of connoisseurship in those sort of mass environments?
Yeah, and I'll use an example from, it's a great movie, and I think it's one of the best definitions of connoisseurship on film. Devil Wears Prada. When Anne Hathaway asks, she's like, "What's the difference between this sweater and that sweater?"
Sean, let me interrupt you. Your sound is breaking up just a tad.
How's that better?
That's better. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, no, like what I'll say is like one of the best definitions I think of connoisseurship is from the movie Devil Wears Prada. And it's when Anne Hathaway asks she's wearing a sweater, and Meryl Streep explains to her that color came from a certain collection, and it filtered down to the discount rack at Marshall's, and that's where it came from. So I think what Carnival Cruise Lines, I think what a lot of the kind of mass travel options have elements of connoisseurship, because people want to see these amazing things. The experience is watered down the further you go.
Sure, I'm getting some feedback on your microphone. Do you want to just replug there and just make sure that's It may be at my
Is
end,
that,
but
is that better?
I think that's fine. Well, I was getting a little bit of reverb and a little bit of echoing, but
Oh, sorry.
that's okay. We'll continue to work with it. Um, Again, in your sphere of influence and the people that you've rubbed shoulders with during your career, are there any individuals who do you sort of profile the true connoisseur? And if so, who and why?
Absolutely. I've been fortunate enough to work with a few. I think Anil Pradhani, who is the chairman of the board of Symphony Asia. He was also the owner of Latitude. And Anil, bar none, epitomizes everything that you would want in a connoisseur, from his Ferrari collection to the way that he collects art, extraordinarily eclectic, to the type of people that he surrounds himself with, to the type of music that he listens to, which is everything from country to opera. He is Neil is a fascinating individual, and he came from relatively humble beginnings. He was raised in India, came to the U.S. in the '60s on a scholarship. Be an engineer, then do investment banking, and the rest, as they say, is history. But yeah, self-taught guy, and one of the classiest. He is, yeah, Neil's everything that you want to have in a connoisseur.
Okay. I'm still getting, Sean, bear with me for a moment. I'm still getting some sound problems. If anybody who's any of our audience today, participants, can you hit me with a chat button if any of you are hearing any sound issues? If you're not, I'll know it's at my end, and we'll deal with it here. Let's get narrowed down, Sean, into upscale travel if we can. You are a little gargled, people are saying, so it may be. It's at your end. You want to bring that microphone back?
Something.
Get that microphone in closer to your mouth, perhaps.
Try this. How's that? Better?
I think so. Say some more stuff to me.
I will say some more stuff. How's that? Better?
Yeah, we've still got a problem, but we'll work through here as best we can. Do you have another microphone? Or
Is that better?
much better. Thank you very much for doing that. Yes, thank you.
Worries.
Let's get into upscale travel itself, and I put some categories down. I want to be all embracing here, Sean. Certainly, air travel, whether it's commercial or private, cruise lines, whether it's ocean or river, private yachting, which is obviously your specialty. Train travel. I'm not thinking about Amtrak. I'm thinking, say, the Blue Train in South Africa. Resorts, certainly experiences, whether it's wine country that's close to our heart or very high-end golf, even a Disney World for that matter. Educational and experiences such as archaeological, heritage, ecological, adventure travel. Embracing all of those categories if we can. Where does connoisseurship tend to stand out the most? If you want to be a connoisseur and if you want to experience connoisseurship, are there categories that we tend to gravitate towards out of that list that I just gave you?
I think food and wine probably food, wine, and fashion probably come to mind the quickest. I think that those are also the most accessible. As far as travel goes, it was interesting. You mentioned the Blue Train. I had to look that up, and that looked pretty good. And the price on that for some of the cruises, for some of the experiences they had, were not outrageous, but it looked unique. I think though, getting back to getting back to kind of like my original definition is like, okay, is there excellence in that, in any of those? I think was for as far as air travel goes, I've got to say that Emirates probably consistently is like one of the highest level of excellences in air travels. For cruise lines, whereas ocean and river, there's a couple that are out there, but like I said, the it really comes down to the crews that are on board those vessels, and from the captains, and are the crew on board there willing to go that extra mile. So I think it's really going to be any organization that fosters an attitude of excellence, and also too, it's one that's willing to take risks. I don't know. I mean, probably some resorts that come to mind, all three of which are in Thailand. There's Thanyapura, which is, if you're looking to get yourself into shape, it's an Olympic training center. There's wonderful doctors and staff on there that are very caring. I mean, it's a wonderful, wonderful experience. Anatara, which is owned by Bill Heineke, who has a lot of hotels globally. Again, the staff there is phenomenal. And finally, Amanpuri, which Anil Fadani helped found, is one of those very, very special places as well too. And I was just saying and what cruise, looking at some of the
let's go through, let's take 5 minutes on this. So certainly from an air travel point of view, commercially, you'd say Emirates is sort of high on your list. Let's go to cruise lines. If you were sending a customer to a cruise line, where would you send them? Name the brand.
Probably Ponant would be one. They operate a couple of really high-end cruise boats. L'Austral is another one. They've got 3 ships. I think the maximum cabins they have on board, I think there's only 150 people on board those boats. So Ponant or L'Austral would be mine too. Hurtigruten has some great trips, and of course there's the World, which is a cruise ship which you can actually buy not only passage, you can actually buy a permanent cabin and live on board that boat. I'd say those are the top tiered cruise lines.
Let's go to trains. Have you had an experience with train travel, with upscale train travel?
No, but my mother has, and she's been on the Orient Express, and she said that was actually a lot of fun. And she also did one that goes, this is years ago, she did one that went across the top of Canada that she said was quite good too. And I can't recall the name of that one.
Let me zero in on an area that's your specialty, which is sort of educational, archaeological, heritage, adventure, ecological, particularly. Who does that the best, Sean?
Well, I do.
Okay. Why? Why and how?
As far as adventure cruising goes, the trick is with that is to keep it safe, but make it adventurous enough that like the guests really feel that they're on adventure. And often in the Arctic, you can walk that line pretty fine. I mean, just the icebergs that are going by us, the polar bears and the wildlife. I mean, the landscape just lends itself to adventure. And also too, you follow that up with telling a story of the people that went before. Like I'll do lectures on board the boat, and we'll talk about the Franklin expedition and how they didn't make it, or we'll talk about Shackleton and these really high adventure stories. So when they go to these places, when we're up on Devon Island and where Franklin spent the winter, they have a connection to that story, and they're part of it. And I think that is the key to good adventure and travel off the beaten path is telling a good story, so that when people go to these places, they can feel part of that story and then tell their own stories. And that's really, I think, the crux of of great travel and great experiences, the stories that come out of it.
Is adventure travel to you the quintessence of traveling?
Oh yeah.
Is that the holy grail?
Oh, absolutely. There's
Why?
nothing like once you've jet skied through an ice field, or swam with whales or whale sharks, or been close to a polar bear. Not, you don't want to get too close to the animals, but if they come to you, there's nothing that will get your adrenaline pumping like that. Is seeing a polar bear actually walk right up along the beach while you're just offshore on your tender.
That's better than being pampered in a 5-star, 6-star resort.
Well, the best part was when you get done with that adventure, you can then come back to the 5-star resort and be pampered all you want. So it's like, that was a great polar bear experience, and now I'd like a massage and a wonderful meal.
The clientele who joins those experiences and those expeditions, why are they doing that? Is it adrenaline? Is it a bucket list? A lot of people just want to check something off the bucket list. What's the psyche of those people?
Yeah, so I've had both. I had one client that he wanted me to take his boat through the Northwest Passage at a breakneck pace because he just wanted to be able to check it off his list. I've been through the Northwest Passage, and I didn't do it. The Arctic doesn't play that way. It's still, we were with Latitude, we were the 9th boat in history to do what we did, going to the Northwest Passage, and that's because it is difficult and it does take time, and there is actual real risk involved. And the people that appreciate that saying that will go regardless because we might not make it, because they want to see things that no one else has seen. That's really the that's the attitude. I mean, it's like, and that's, I think you'll find more entrepreneurs really than that embrace that they've been to the Bahamas, they've done all these different things, they've cruised these different areas. Like, let's do something different. Let's go heli skiing. Let's do something special.
Sean, as the captain of the yacht, you're the last line of defense. If something goes wrong, ultimately it's going to come back on your shoulders. So staying inside that perimeter fence, what are your operating principles in terms of providing that client with the absolute, again, the quintessence of an experience? Do you have to be obsessive? Is it detail orientation? What is it? What do you have to do to make sure that client says, I've never had anything better than this?
You got to have a conversation with your client, and you've got to listen to them. Some of the best charters I've ever had have just been in New England, and that was just because I listened to what the guy was looking for. And this is, I'm going to go a little bit off topic, but it'll kind of give you a look into my philosophy and why I do things. I used to joke that it's not what we do. It's not like we're curing cancer. And I changed my tune after I did a charter in the south of France with a Russian family. And the principal got on board, and he was this big Russian guy. He ran the largest car factory in the world, 350,000 employees. Well, anyway, after about 3 days, he was still kind of sullen and not really looking like he was having fun. And I asked him, I said, is there anything that we're doing wrong? And he goes, no. He says, but when I get back, I think I have to lay off 20,000 people. And that really weared on him. But so anyway, we continued on with the charter, and we killed it. And what his goal with that charter was to reconnect with his family. And we did that in spades. We had fun with the sons. We had fun with the daughters. It was, by the end of the trip, he was tan, he was laughing. And we were pulling back into Monaco, and he was up in the bridge, and he said to me, he says, I think I figured out a way to keep those 20,000 people employed. And it was right there that I realized that just by doing our job, by providing a top-notch experience, we were able to relieve his tension just enough where he could think straight. So necessarily, we really weren't curing maybe a cancer of the body, but we were curing a cancer of the soul. And when you do that with the 1% of the 1%, you really have an opportunity to change lives on like a geopolitical scale. I mean, this guy came in with a bad attitude, with his estranged from his family, and within 2 weeks, because we did a great job and because we offered him these amazing experiences, and he could forget about what he was doing, or what he needed to do in the outside world, he was able to think clearer. And that's an extraordinary thing. The other thing is the devil's in the details. This goes back to a charter I mentioned earlier in New England. It was one guy, similar thing. He wanted to reconnect with his family, and the broker was wondering what to get him for a gift. And I called her up after 2 days and I said, look, go to Staples, go get some binder clips and engrave the name of the boat and the date on it. And she thought I was crazy. And I said, no. He uses binder clips for a wallet. And so when I gave it to him, he actually kind of teared up a little bit because it was such a personal gift, because I took the minute to kind of look who he was and get him something that he really truly appreciated. It didn't cost a lot of money, but we paid attention to what his needs were. The other thing that we did on that charter that was amazing was that it was the last night we're in Manhattan, and these guys had really rode us hard. And this goes back to, like, it's that, when you're on that 1 yard line, you've got to give that little bit more. And I remember I was sleeping in the engine room because I had to give up my cabin because we had extra people on there. But anyway, so they were out at a play. They were getting off the boat on the next day, and he called me and I answered the phone and I said, hello. And he goes, hey, is it possible we could go out for a cruise tonight? And I thought to myself, I'm exhausted. I could give him a litany of excuses of why we can't do this, but I said, no, we're going to do it. So anyway, we leave the dock and we go out, and it is one of those perfect Manhattan nights. There's a full moon. There's the Brooklyn Bridge. We're anchored. We're just hovering off the Statue of Liberty. There's Manhattan right there. Now, why this was special was New York is where he started his career. It's where he met his wife. It's where he started his family. It's what launched him. And to go full circle and to be off Manhattan on board a yacht, looking at that where he started, was the best gift I could give him. Now, I was up forward, and that we had some champagne. It was just he and his wife. And I could see him, and I go, cue the music. And I brought on their song that they loved. And they both started crying. And I said, I just wanted to go roll credits, because that was those are the experiences. And you only get those from listening to your customers. I listened to him because he mentioned how he met his wife in Manhattan. He mentioned that's where he started his career. He told me how special all this stuff was. But so many people in industries, or even, they just don't listen. And I think that's the crux of having a great waiter, even at your table. They just listen to you, and then they'll bring you what you want. It's not a hard formula.
Sean, when things go wrong at your end, what are the common elements that go wrong? When you screw up, where do you screw up?
Well, I'm gonna go from a service side of it. There's like mechanical stuff that you just can't.
Yeah, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about stuff you have control over.
Well, I'll give you a perfect example. It was one time we had a client on board. We're in Newport, and he was real adamant that he just wanted to go after dinner to be able to sit in the hot tub and be in the harbor in Newport and just have it, spend some time with his wife. And I mentioned I mentioned to my first officer and to my bosun, whatever you do, make sure that hot tub is ready to go. Well, sure enough, get dinner. I decide to go up to the top deck to check. Hot tub's not ready to go. I was slightly aggravated with that, because I knew how long it took to get that hot tub up and running. So I'm up there. Also, too, it was dirty. So I'm in there, I'm cleaning the hot tub, and my mate and my bosun are right there, and they looked at me, and they knew I was hot, and I'm cleaning the thing, and he walks the client walks up, he's got his bathrobe on, and he looks at me, and I said, I'm very sorry, but a seagull went to the bathroom in the hot tub. We have to clean it. So I
Nice
lied to him
save.
is what I did. And he went, okay. And it was a reasonable explanation. But what my interior crew did, because they knew the deck was in big trouble, they transformed the master cabin into this beautiful romantic setting, like rose petal flowers. They had the hot tub going in there, all the treats. So he basically was like, okay, I don't get this hot tub, but there's this other amazing experience. And I think that's the key, is like when stuff like that happens, and stuff does happen, you got to be prepared to pivot. And that pivot is going to be equally or better than what they were expecting.
Sean, quickly on staffing, again, across all the categories, whether it's air travel, a train, a resort, whatever the case may be, are there core elements of the perfect staff to hire? Forget experience, you can teach them that. What are the 2 or 3 core attributes that you're looking for when you're hiring?
That is one of my favorite questions, and a question I get often. And the number one, I was asked this years ago in a magazine, and they said, what's the number one, attribute that you look for in crew? And I say it's kindness. And the woman that was interviewing me said, well, what do you mean by that? And I said, well, if they can't be kind to each other, then that's going to cause friction behind the scenes, which will then spill over into the guest experience. And so if you have people on board that are generally kind and look out for each other, then the service to the guest is the service to the guest. You don't even have to worry about that, because
there's an
it is in their DNA.
Because it's teamwork.
Well, not so much. It is teamwork. They do. Yeah, but it's just an innate need or ability to empathize and care for the people that are in your care and that are around you.
What else?
And the other thing, well, skills are good too. I mean, on Latitude, I like the stars aligned for that boat. I had an outstanding first officer. I had one of the questions I asked in an interview, I said, what's your favorite movie? What's your favorite book? And Shelton's favorite book was this book called Way of the Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman. If you haven't read it, I'm not going to go into it, but I recommend that you do. And I said, I knew I'd found the right guy. I knew he understood service just by reading, just because I knew he had read that book and it had resonated with him. He exceeded my expectations. My engineer technically wasn't qualified for the job, but he had a stick-to-itiveness that I recognized when I originally spotted him as a deckhand. And my chief stewardess, Haley, was just, again, it just had a work ethic like you wouldn't believe, and she was creative. Now, what is also interesting about all 3 of these individuals is that all 3 of them barely graduated high school. And they've all gone, and so they just weren't, they didn't fit into that kind of standard organization. But they absolutely blossomed on board Latitude. And that actually comes from the top down. And I'm not talking me, I'm talking the owner of that vessel, Anil Fadani, allowed me to take risks with a relatively unproven crew, and then allowed me to give them everything they needed to succeed, and they exceeded my expectations. So that was a combination of just great talent, a great owner, and great people.
Sean, we're up against the 15-minute mark here, so I'm going to move quickly if I can.
Sure.
Some headlines. Very quickly, you've developed intuitive skills after all these years. When the client is at the bottom of the gangway, the gangplank, whatever you call that thing, and they're walking on board, what are the unseen, unheard, visceral signs that tell you what you're in for? I have got a connoisseur here. I don't have a connoisseur. I've got one who's unhappy. I've got one who's, what are you looking for?
Great question. And I really try to own the customer experience from the second they leave their house or where they are. I like to know how they're getting to the airport, how they're flying, if I can talk to the pilots on board the plane, if the type of literature that I can put on the planes or put on the cars, at the very least, it's our people that pick them up at the airports to bring them to the boat. And just, even if it's just a 15-minute ride, if I'm in there, I can judge their mood. Like, how is their flight? How's their family? How's their luggage? And in the meantime, again, having that conversation with them, finding out what they want, finding what they need. And sometimes they just might need quiet. I then radio ahead to the boat or phone ahead to the boat and say, okay, look, this is what we're in for. This is what we're in to expect. When they get on board the boat, it's harder to do that.
Is there a singular cue that you look for?
Yeah, if they're smiling or not.
Gotcha. By the way, I had a question here. Any feedback on Explorer Journeys? It's a new ship. I think it's a division of MCG that's going into the Caribbean in 23-24. Nothing there?
I got nothing on that one, really. I'm not even familiar with it. There's a lot of different organizations that have popped up.
Let me go back. Let me go back to the overall universe of luxury travel. And I think I put this in my note to you. Again, this quintessence of the sort of the upscale travel experience in connoisseurship, brands that stand out. I gave you as examples Oberoi, to a certain extent Four Seasons, perhaps Seabourn, Abercrombie, Lake Como in Italy, summer in the Hamptons. Are there particular brands that stand out to you as being pretty unassailable in terms of the quintessence of their delivery?
Yeah, I gotta give it up to the Four Seasons. I think consistently globally, that's a great brand, and it again, it comes down to their management. They've got really good management, and they get the same pool of people to hire from, but again, they give their people everything they need to succeed. Ritz-Carlton is also pretty good, though I haven't. But yeah, I gotta admit, almost every Ritz-Carlton that I've been to I've had good experience. I used to like the old Ritz-Carlton in Manhattan, and if any of you are New York, you remember the old Jockey Club with Norman the bartender and stuff. So
they've never been the same since Marriott.
I'm dating myself.
But since Marriott bought them out, it's been a different experience.
It's not the same. It's not the same. I even had. But it's still not bad. The other brands, again, Anatara in Thailand is really good. And then I got to give it up to for clothing. I was up shopping in Boston the other day, and it was just like I was appalled at the lack of selection or really anything. And I'm just going to talk about men's fashion right here. There's really only 3 stores in the world that I've been to, which they really nail it. One is RJB Design in Auckland, New Zealand. If you want custom shirts or anything, that Ron is phenomenal. There's another store in Copenhagen, which I cannot remember the name of, which is great. And then there's Maxwell's in Falmouth on Cape Cod, which is probably the best curated collection of men's clothes and fashion. And that's, I think, as brands would be my top picks. You get a Hotel of Fashion. And then for
Sean, go back for a second to Thailand. Would you spell the name of the resort for us, please?
Sure, it's Anatara, Anatara.
And it headlines quickly, why? Why do you love them so much?
It's Anatara was started by Bill Heineke. He came to Thailand, is a relatively young man, started a cleaning business, decided that he was going to get into the luxury hotel business, and then he enlisted the help of Anil Thadani, who was the original founders of Amanpuri. And Amanpuri, that brand was really the definition of a really great resorts, and they had great resorts.
What's special about this resort? What's special about this resort?
The staff. That's it. It's the same beaches. They've got they pop up like Zuma. I think they've also got Zuma in there because they know the owner of Zuma. That's a sushi restaurant. They've got one in Miami, all over the place too. He like Bill and Anil attract great partners. So they'll partner with great restaurants that'll come in there and do pop-up stuff. There's the great fashion designer Kenzo, I think is he's one of the guys that is there quite a bit. It's just a great group of people. I mean, even the music and the bands that they have there, they play there because they love Anil and they love Bill, and it just shows. It's a wonderful experience, and that's because of the people that are there. But I mean, the rooms aren't anything special. I mean, they're nice, but yeah, there's nice rooms all over the world.
It's the people difference. Quickly, when you get offended, Sean, you're traveling, you're touching this 24/7. When you get offended, what offends you in terms of your experience, your touch points with luxury travel?
Apathy.
Explain.
It offends me. It's like just not being seen and not being heard. That makes me crazy, whether I am getting a cup of coffee or whether I am checking into, $1,000 a night hotel. That's how Land Rover lost my business. I had a Land Rover. It was a great car. And I drove into a Land Rover dealership with every intention of buying a new Land Rover, stood in the lobby for 10 minutes, and no one helped me. I got in my car, I walked out, I went over to Mercedes, walked in, gentleman, Bobby Chin, came up to me, says, anything we can do for you? I says, yeah, I'm looking for a car. What would you like? I go, I like that one. They said, would you like coffee? What can we do for you? They bent over backwards.
Do you see a lot of apathy in high-end travel?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Well, where is it manifested most?
Everywhere. I think that's, it's I see it everywhere. And it's because it's because we're so inundated with like Instagram and all these flash, like everything's got to be quick and everything. It's like, look at me. No one's actually listening to anybody. I feel it's becoming systemic. But again, the organizations that listen to their customers, and I'm just, sometimes it's just, and that actually goes both ways too. It's like I've actually, I went to a Hertz counter one time, and the guy behind there was fuming, and he was having a bad day. And I looked at him and I said, is there anything I can do to help? And he was so shocked that I saw him. He said, oh, I'm having trouble at home. And I had a 5-minute conversation with him, and had nothing to do with cars or anything, and I was truly concerned about him. And that did translate into an upgrade, but
Sean, in the case of apathy, will a customer walk, or will the customer accept that? Again, high-end travel.
My customers, they'll walk.
They will
100%.
walk.
Oh yeah, you get, they don't have to. I walked. I'm not gonna. I mean, I like my Land Rover, but I was like, no. If this is how you treat, if this is the front door to, what's your maintenance? What are your maintenance guys doing? I mean, again, attitudes like that are systemic, and people say it doesn't matter who's on your front line. Of course it does. And that's why Dunkin' Donuts is still around. Say I hate their coffee. It tastes like it's filtered through an ashtray. But the people that work there, they know their customers. They say hi. It's like how you doing? Yeah. It's like their local coffee shops. So
Sean, anyway. Question on teaching connoisseurship. Well, I've got 5 minutes left here. I just want to get a couple of questions in quickly. In terms of teaching or acquiring connoisseurship, where do you go for that? Do you go to the media? Do you read critics? Do you watch the Travel Channel? Where's the best place? Assuming you're talking to a dullard here who aspires to learn about luxury travel, where do you send me?
Well, you call me. I'm not saying that as an advertisement. I think the best thing is I am not proud. I'm involved in a lot of different industries, and I like to learn about things. And I think and oftentimes I'm the stupidest person in the room, but I've never had I've always had I don't want to call it the bravery, but just the ability to say I don't know. So I think if you want to learn something, just say I don't know.
Find somebody like you. Find somebody like
someone
you.
like me.
But assuming you can't do that, assuming you're going through general channels of acquiring and learning, where do you send them?
There's like Masterclass is online. Get a membership with that. If you want to know about great cooking or whatever, take a Masterclass. There are groups. Just do a search in the on the internet anywhere, saying like you want to learn about Ferraris, go to a Ferrari group. Or oftentimes if you want to know about really anything, we live in such an age of connection that there are groups, there are websites. There is no excuse not to be educated on any subject in the world.
Let me throw a hypothetical at you. I have a young son or a young daughter, 20 years of age, never traveled extensively, and I'm going to pay for their trip. And I want them to have a blast, but I want them to acquire at least the first inkling of connoisseurship. What would you package?
I would tell them to get a job on board a yacht if
Why?
they're that young.
Why?
Because then they'll learn it. They'll learn. I think the best way to learn anything is to ascertain what you would want. And that's what I do when I'm on board a boat, when I'm listening to clients who want to book a charter with me, or people that want to buy a boat from me, is I think, what would I want in that? And the best way to do that is to work in the particular industry. The other thing I would do is, if they were that young, is I would hand them a backpack and just say, go walk around. And I give them some hints. You might want to go to Thailand. This is where you want to stay. Here's where you want to go in Italy. These are the things that you want to see. I would tell them to go to Pompeii, I'm just going to mention that. It's probably one of the best archaeological sites I've ever been to. It's amazing to see how similar we were to the people that lived in ancient Rome. Those are the types of experiences I would say. Get amongst the people. That would be it. I mean, you're going to find, one of the best meals I had in LA, it was a couple of months ago, it was on the side of a road. It was a guy who was selling like these molitas. It was delicious. And later on to find out that was the best taco place, the best little Mexican place in that whole neighborhood. And I don't know how I found it or decided to pick it out. It was probably because there was the line of people that was in front of it. But you just got to get out there and walk around.
Final question, Sean. Sure. You've tucked a lot of experiences under your belt in these years. Give me one that really stood out, that just knocked you off your feet, that remains memorable to this day.
The Northwest Passage.
Why?
The Northwest Passage, the first time that we did it, we were the 216th boat in history ever to do it. Oftentimes, we were the only boat that was there. I think there was only one other boat that made it through that particular year. That was in 2014. But it was an untried, I'd never done anything like this. It was an untried vessel with an untried crew, with a brand new owner, and we had zero expectations. And at every phase of that, from planning to execution, to the people on board, to the experiences that we had, exceeded my wildest dreams in all aspects. It challenged me as a captain, as a human being, as a manager, everything. It was a very, very special trip, and one that spawned Boat International Awards. We did another passage through the Northwest Passage because of that. We then went on to circumnavigate Svalbard. It was the springboard for it brought my career to a completely different level, and brought the people that were on board that boat as guests. It brought them an appreciation for the elements. It brought the crew into a completely different level. It was transformative for all the right reasons.
Sean, it's 11 o'clock. We're out of time here, and we try to be punctual with everybody. Everybody stayed with us. This has been a fantastic conversation. I want to thank you very, very much. I could talk to you for another 3 or 4 hours, but neither of us has that luxury, I guess. To all of you on the session, a reminder that we will be sending out the Zoom link, or the link to the recording, which will be posted on YouTube this afternoon. And we appreciate you spending time with us today. Sean, thank you very, very much. It's been a pleasure to have you. I wish you many, many great years of yachting.
And thank you. And I just wanted to say, if any of you want to follow me on Instagram at Excitement Factory, or feel free to email me, Sean@worthavenueyachts.com. And if you're in Palm Beach next week, swing by the Palm Beach Boat Show.
Give me the email address again,
Sean@worthavenueyachts.com. Or on Instagram, you can direct message me, and my Instagram handle is Excitement Factory.
All right. You've been exciting today, Sean. Thank you very, very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
And great sailing days ahead. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we say goodbye to the captain, and we say goodbye to you. It's been a pleasure to have you, and we'll see you at our next program coming up. Take care. Farewell.